What's up, y'all? It's your girl Amanda, and welcome to another episode of the Dope Confidence Podcast. Listen, if you've been enjoying all the conversations that I've been having with amazing individuals, talking about entrepreneurship, talking about pursuing their goals, going after their dreams, unlocking their potential, you know what you need to do? You need to like, you need to subscribe, you need to share, and continue to join the conversation with some of the amazing people that I have on my show, especially today. Now listen, y'all know time is an issue for some of us. I don't know about y'all, but sometimes managing my time can be a little bit overwhelming. And today I have an amazing guest. Her name is Jen Soenen. She helps people to go beyond the clock and to maximize and manage their time optimally. So if you have a time challenge, there's a really good book called The Time Warriors. We're going to talk about that, Jen. But if you have a challenge with time, she is going to walk you through some strategies that's going to help to change your life. So let's go ahead and bring Jen in. How are you, Jen?
I am great. Thank you, Amanda, for that warm welcome. And yeah, I'm excited. Love all things about time.
Yeah. So let's jump into it. How did you become a time warrior or a person that loved time? Where did that come from?
Well, like most of us start our businesses out of necessity, and it was my own personal journey. I was going through what the courts call a marriage breakdown. And definitely I realized that I had lived my life so much for other people. Definitely people pleasing. And when you go through that, like everything's crumbling around you. And what I thought what would get me happiness wasn't making me happy. And in fact, it just brought everything down. So I started out with, listen, like people pleasing hasn't worked. So I need to change this. This is great feedback. What am I going to do? And I just started to say, I looked at my calendar. I remember one time looking at my day timer. It was all pretty and everything. And I had in there everything for everyone else.
Wow.
But I wasn't making time for myself. And I said, well, I've been doing this and it hasn't been working. And I had big open spaces. So when people would ask me they'd call me up on the fly and say, hey, can you help out? I'd be like, yeah. And then after, though I helped them out, I enjoyed helping them out, but I felt empty and mad at myself for not doing the thing that I wanted to do. So it really became, and how I've really developed a lot of these strategies is through research, but then also trying them myself and making sure, okay, well, did this work or didn't it? And not all the tools that, worked for me will work for my clients and, what I'm going to share here. But the thing is, it's a toolbox. Let's use different strategies. So it really came out of, I really want to be happy. I want to feel that joy. I want to live my life to the fullest. So that's how it started, was like, you know what? If I know the base necessity is that I need to be in control of my time. And now I further, really have grown that. And I feel it's all our responsibilities are able to respond is to manage our time as well as we can.
Yeah, guilty. And, I think over time, we discover through certain experiences that we are people pleasers, right? And we do look at our calendars, and sometimes we give up all of our time and we don't have any time for ourselves. Why do you think we do that? Why do you think we people please? And I know for, us as women, if that's how you identify that, that's what we do.
Yeah, it's definitely in our generational upbringing, right? That we are always supposed to give, give, give. And I think that it really takes time and self-awareness to really understand that when we give to ourselves, not like, and, say, see you later to everyone else, that it actually gives more to people. I can confidently say I am a better mother, person, human being
Mm.
because I'm giving more time to myself, right? And why do we do that? I think a lot of times it's, you know, that we don't do it is because it is bred into us almost that this is what we're supposed to do. And we're supposed to take care of others. And while taking care of others also means taking care of ourselves. And,
Mm.
you know, one of my big things too with all everyone that I meet is, you know, make sure that you're taking care of yourself, your well being, because if you don't have your health, you have nothing. And I think
Mhm.
we can all see that definitely that that will take place. And I think sometimes that we forget that we are part of that circle. So it's so easy to be
Mhm.
like, we can get through this, we can get through this and keep going until we can't.
Right. Do you think, like, with some of your clients, you are a coach, that there's some guilt associated with with their time, when it comes down to family or maybe work or business?
Yeah, I think guilt and also a little bit of lack of prioritization. I mean,
Mm.
and guilt is, I think guilt is tricky, right? Because people will try and guilt us into doing things like, oh, I could really use your help, right? Like you're the only person that can do it. And I mean, I've had this several times, but specifically with, you know, managers and entrepreneurs that have employees, they're like, well, they're just always at my door. And I'm like, well, they're always at your door because you haven't, you know, shown them how to do it themselves or, you know,
Mm.
delay the response, right? So, and we like it, right? The other side of guilt is that we feel needed.
Yeah.
And we all, you know, when people are guilting us into doing things, I know part of me feels like, oh, I'm so glad that I feel needed and that I'm
Mm.
valued,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we tend to get it out of that.
Yeah, that's so true. And, we don't look at that side of, oh, we do want to feel like we're needed. Like, people want to actually, use the gifts or the talents that I have to bring value to their company or to, their business or organization. You talked about prioritizing. Let's start there, with prioritizing, because that's hard. Let's keep it real, Jen. It's hard to prioritize your time. Walk us through, if we're a client and we're coming to you. I'm having some issues or some challenges with managing my time, and
Mhm.
getting the most, or having the most optimal time in my life. Walk us through, how do you help a client?
Well, the first step that I do, because I really feel that I like the whole person. And especially, like, I mean, I've done corporate teams, entrepreneurs, you know, individuals. And so the first thing I always do is an energy tracker. I ask
Hmm.
the people to track their energy for 5 to 7 days, and I provide them with the tracker. And I actually have a free version on my website where you can track, and I compare it to a battery because everyone knows a battery, right? Like, do you feel 100%, 75%, 50, 25, and then like 10 and under? And so that gives me information on how their natural body is fluctuating. And I like to take it from 5 to 7 days because that's a good average, right?
Okay.
And from that, I synthesize that information and I help and I identify their peak performance time. So that is really their alone time.
Hmm.
And we start blocking that out in their calendar. And that makes a huge difference. And I'm all about, especially with my teaching background, and I'm all about strategies. I don't try and throw like a whole bunch of mud at the wall and see what sticks or spaghetti. I try and I really know how to scaffold. So peak performance is what's going to move the needle, right? If you can identify that peak performance and then work within that time, like research has shown that you start gaining 1 to 2 hours a day. Well, that's 5 to 10 hours a week.
Wow.
So like it's not that you have to do a lot of times, it's not that you have to do more or less. It is, are we blocking out our times the proper way? And that's why I say optimal time
Hmm.
strategies, because it's about optimizing. You might be doing all the right things, but just doing them at the wrong time. So that's
Wow.
really where I start. Yeah.
That's
It,
very interesting. Because I think about that now. Everyone, experienced different things after the pandemic, right? Post pandemic, we've all experienced a
mhm.
lot of changes within our life. But me coming from the music industry, I spent a lot of my time being a night owl, right? Going to the studio at 8 or 9 o'clock, all the way up to like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. But then over time, when I started to jump into a new industry with speaking, and I've noticed that my sleep patterns have changed, of course, but my energy and you can break that down a little bit more when you talk about your energy tracker. Is it your energy level when you feel your most you can perform your most, like during the day or the nighttime? Because I know it's changed over time for me. So break that down a little bit more with your energy tracker. Are you tracking like what's the best time that Amanda performs or she's most productive during the day?
Yeah, so that's what it is. Like your
Okay.
energy is the highest. And typically, if you say, okay, yeah, my energy's at 100%, that is usually when your prefrontal cortex, your cognition is online. And that really
Mm.
is when you should be doing those, move the needle performance tasks, right? So synthesizing information, if you're developing a program, develop it during that time. Whereas,
Mm.
and again, like there are different universities that have done extensive research. And then, because what happens is then when you're feeling, less than that peak performance time, it's a great time for collaboration. And that I mark that one at like when you're feeling about 75%. So you're still alert, but now your brain is a little bit more relaxed and you're
Mm.
open to brainstorming. That's where that collaboration comes in, right? And where you're open to trying new things, and kind of like your brain's a little bit in that state of you can come together and create something more. So
Mind blowing. Because during this conversation right now, I'm like scanning my brain, right, of thinking of like the different projects and when I work best. And it's so true. I think we're so stuck in this box society wise of how we should function throughout the day. And you need to be an early riser and you got to wake up and start
yeah,
at
it doesn't
6
happen.
a.m. Like, that's not me. That isn't
Yeah.
me. And I think this is genius. This is such an amazing conversation to have because I feel that we especially as entrepreneurs, we feel that we have to be put into this box to formulate our life like what we see and read in Forbes magazine, Inc., whatever it may be. But we're all unique in our peak performances as individuals. And this is so good. This is so good. I
Exactly.
think this is like the
Oh,
game
thank you.
changer. Like, this is a key that's going to unlock so many people with their performance for them to be productive in their businesses in their everyday life. Man, wow.
Yeah. I'm
Wow.
glad that you feel that, Amanda. And as soon as you said, yeah, if you're a night owl, I had, a few of my clients, and the one we were having this discussion, and she's like, "Man, I just want to be a morning, like an early riser," and I'm like, "But why?" And she goes, "Because all the books tell me to be," and
Right.
I'm like, "But when you get your kids down." Like, because she's an entrepreneur and she has a couple kids, I said, you write your best stuff. I said, why don't you
Mm,
just embrace that and stop criticizing yourself? Right. And same with you,
yes.
right? Like, this is the way my day works. I love getting up at, being up at 5. I love that. And but I also go to bed between 9 and 10:30,
Yeah.
right? Like it it just like and to her it would be something else. And I'm just said, why don't you just embrace it? And she goes,
Yeah.
yeah, why don't I? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm giving you permission.
And that's what we need sometimes, Jen. We need
Yeah.
permission, right? From people like you that, like, it's okay to embrace who you are. You don't have to be an early riser. I'm sure not. My sister loves to wake up early in the morning. She wants to have full on conversations at 6. And I'm like, with a hoodie on, like, listen, let me get some coffee and get my mind right before we start talking about stuff, especially stuff that's
Yeah,
important.
exactly.
Like, no.
I love it.
Wow, this is
Yeah.
so good. You're really making me feel so much better about who I am and the way I
Awesome.
function.
That's the best. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, I have consulted with a couple teams, and it's interesting when I bring all the team members together and they share their roadmap. And I know one workshop I was in, and they were sharing the roadmap, and a couple of them were like, "Oh my God," to another team member, "I am so sorry. I've been
Wow.
trying to push you for 8 o'clock meetings, and like you don't even start work till 9." Like, they were so unaware, and they were like, and you're not awake yet. Like if and their peak, because this person's peak performance time was like in the afternoon, right? So
Hmm.
typically the collaboration time is either before that or right after. And they're like, oh my gosh, no wonder you have been like so distant in a lot of the
Yes.
meetings. So it's just creating that awareness, right? And not
Wow.
taking it personally.
It
Yeah.
makes a whole lot of sense, especially from a leadership or an executive team. Like, you want your employees to have their best performance, right? To be very productive in your
Yeah.
company. And if you know their energy level, if you know these things, you'll be able to implement and give them space to be who they are, right? Man,
Yeah.
this is such a game changer. How come people are not talking about this? You need to write an article about this. I hope you have like a podcast or something coming soon, because this is important information. Really, it honestly is. Like, this needs to be taught in school, because even when you think about students and how they learn, and teachers, God bless them, want to push, students to a certain level of learning, but everyone's different.
Yeah. Yeah. It really
Wow.
is. And especially, for entrepreneurs or people trying to do a couple different things, like it really, if you can focus in on that time and schedule that out, like block it out. Like I have on my calendar, and this goes back to, why did I start this? Like it's like I block it out. And that
Wow.
is because when I first, so many years ago, and I was such a people pleaser, I had nothing in my calendar besides commitments for others. Then when I started to put in my own, it was like, oh, and I could show people. And as soon as they saw my calendar, right? If people see things in your calendar, they're like, oh yeah, you're busy, and then I can, move forward with that. And it's interesting, and it was a way to set a boundary without me saying no to someone, because I would
Mm.
open up my book and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I can see you're jam packed. What about next week?" I'd be like, "Yeah, perfect." So it's an easy way, not easy way, but an easier way than
Right.
to say no. So, but yeah, peak performance, like it is. When I came across the research, and just, you know, it's mind blowing that
Wow.
we don't have to fall into the belief that we're told you never have enough time, like it's all, it's a fallacy. Like it doesn't have to be true.
Wow. Wow. Look, I'm done. I'm done, guys. I'm done. I've solved my problem. I can move forward with being the best me, the authentic me for the rest of the year. Oh my goodness. All right. So
Yeah.
that's the first step. So then after you find out where their peak performance is, what's the next step for your clients?
The next step in the time optimization roadmap is that I meet with the client and we actually customize. So, you know, if it was if you were we were going through and creating your roadmap, I would ask you your tasks that you need to get done, right? On and we would go through it and we would be plugging in and I'd be showing you, okay, well, what's peak performance task versus the collaboration time versus 50% versus like 25%, and then 10 and under is it's usually sleeping or taking naps. And I've recommended that to my clients. And
Really?
it seems, yeah, and what my experience with a variety of clients is the ones who have like neurodivergence. So that includes
Mm-hmm.
ADD, ADHD on the autism spectrum and everything, is that actually that their peak performance, they usually have two peak performance. It's not like, because that sustained time of 2 hours is a little bit too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't say anything. I was just like, okay, because some people don't tell me, and then afterwards I'm like, oh, this is interesting, right? And we chat. But for some people, like taking a 20-minute nap is midday, should be built into their lunchtime
Mm.
because it helps to rejuvenate them, right? They have more dips and it helps to bring up their energy level. So
Wow.
it is. So I work with, we sit down and have a session where we're road mapping all of their
Okay.
tasks. So it's very customized to the individual.
I love that.
And, I like sometimes too, like if they are part of a team, I said, well, read your first draft at 50%. Then when you're ready to synthesize that, that's during your peak performance time. Because we
Mm.
know if we have to read a few things, like the first time through, it's just getting that general idea. So you don't want to utilize that peak performance time. That should be done more at that 50% time. So that's what we do. We sit down and we roadmap it all, and we create a weekly calendar.
Wow. And tell me what transformation you've seen with your clients after after you've created the roadmap for them and the weekly calendar.
Well, if they utilize the peak time, they're
That's number one.
and again, this goes back to the scaffolding. So I always say, you don't, if you feel like you can, then block out all those times. But if not, let's start with peak performance. Let's just start with an hour, right? Because you're creating a new habit. You're not, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's the thing, right? So um, definitely what I see is that people are doing more in less time.
Hmm.
And this one client that kind of comes to mind specifically, she was she is an office manager, and she was, managing during the day. She'd get her, go home, have supper, get her kid to bed, and then work at night. And then that was one of the things was, she didn't want to keep working at night, but
Mm-hmm.
she felt like she had to. Well, when we got a roadmap and she was implementing it, and I said, hey, what are you doing at night? And she'd tell me like she's going out with friends and she was walking and doing all this great stuff. And I said, isn't that amazing? She goes, oh my gosh, I don't even feel the need to open my computer.
Wow.
I was like, that's incredible.
Yes. It is incredible. Wow. Yeah, this is a game changer. This needs to be talked
Yeah.
about more. It really, really does on so many different levels. Um, wow.
I'm
Okay.
trying. I got, and I agree with you, and I appreciate that, and I love it. And I'm open for sure for suggestions. I think
Yeah.
just with, and I know for myself when I started, because when I first started to kind of recover and work on time strategies, I didn't have this research and this strategy. But now that I do, like I sit back and I'm like, wow, I get a
Yeah.
lot done and I have more space. I have more space and I am such um living my more like my authentic self.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, amazing.
Wow. And even incorporating, like for some clients, taking a 20-minute nap to, recharge them, or I think, some people may be like, well, you're being lazy. Like,
Push through, push
right. You're
through.
taking
Yeah.
a nap during the day. Like, do you really need to take a nap? And I think that that's a lot of the narratives that we think we will hear when we do some of the things that you've mentioned, but we can be our best self when we implement these time strategies that you've mentioned, which is, yeah, so good. So good. All right. So we have our roadmap, and a person definitely has to commit and be intentional about really making the changes to create this new habit, to implement this weekly program so they can manage their time optimally. And if you do, you'll see great transformation in your life. Tell me how you felt when you had your first client and you begin to see the transformation in them, the testimonials that you received from them.
Yeah, and I started out more as a general life coach,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been like the last year that I've really niched into time because I'm just like I love this. Like I can see where this is very like impactful,
Yeah.
and you know we can make changes, within such a short time, and so. Oh my goodness, I lost your question.
Oh yeah. Your first
Was
client, since
yeah,
you've niched down.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. So what I've seen, it actually was the client that her, peak performance time was at night and not
Oh,
during
that was
the
the first
morning.
one.
So, and it's so nice to see that when people just open up and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you can see that they were judging themselves and trying to fit
Mm-hmm.
into something that wasn't for them. And, it's just so, it really validated and helped me understand that that's why we have so many books on time. That is why there are so many, you know, peak performance coaches and consultants. And
Mm-hmm.
you got to find the one that fits for you.
Yeah.
And, that I put my own unique spin on it and how to scaffold and help people progress through that so it's lasting change and not just a quick fix.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it really was.
and tell me, when you made the transition or decided to niche down a little bit more, since this podcast is about confidence, did you struggle with making that decision?
No, it was very natural, but I also had a business coach. So we were
Okay.
working together and and she's like, oh my goodness, like this is you. Like she's like, because I tend to be very matter of fact with a lot of people, like, well, just do it. Like, see, just
Uh-huh.
try it. Like, if you do it and it doesn't work, it's feedback and we can move on. But,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was really nice that I had that outside support. And I
Yeah.
recommend everyone, right? Like, it was nice to have that business coach because we already had been through a few different things and kind of working through, and that was the thing, I was trying a bunch of different things, so having that support really helped, and she helped me really bring in other things that I was doing but to funnel it down.
Yeah, support is so needed on your journey. When you're building a business, if you have the support, you can, even when there's moments when you just don't believe or you're just kind of getting frustrated, you have that other voice that's there to help you move along. Um, yeah, that's good. Get a business coach, guys, or someone that can
Yeah.
support you on your journey. And how have you been since you've started being, a coach, especially optimizing time? Have you fallen in love with it? Do you feel like this is me? This is totally me. You've embraced it?
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting. And yeah, definitely. And just even, I feel way more confident in sharing and giving people strategies versus like when I was more of a general life coach. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel this is very important. And I've collaborated with other coaches. They brought me in because like, I'm like, this is all I do. And, you know, where it can really move the needle, especially
Yeah.
for, I've worked with some leadership coaches in the sense of, that I I'm able to help their clients create the time so that they can implement the strategies that they're giving them. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really, what it's all about. But yeah, time strategy, I think I love it because there's no one can argue, right? Like we have 24 hours. It's how we manipulate and kind of play around with it, but ultimately it's like gender neutral. It's,
Mm-hmm.
I yeah, you can't argue with it. We can argue that it's a Western concept or, construct and
Mm-hmm.
everything, but bottom line, our world works off of time. And
Yes.
so uh, if we are able to, I like that it's just like salt of the earth. I grew up on a farm and it
Oh,
just
wow.
like, it kind of brings me home. Yeah. And that's the thing, even with the 20-minute naps, I picture myself like when I was cultivating, like I'd have to stop mid afternoon and take a
Uh-huh.
nap because like the rows were getting all wonky. And so, time strategy is just, I feel it can be so impactful and help so
Mm-hmm.
many people.
Yeah, I believe that, from corporate all the way down to the everyday person, that time strategy can really change your life. What do you feel are the benefits? Let's talk about the benefits of time strategies, for an
Oh,
individual.
yeah, and some of the key ones is improved work balance, and I like to say improved time allocation.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily believe that it's a balance because it depends what season we're really in our lives, and
Yes.
so by aligning the tasks with ideal energy levels and prioritizing effectively, then we can really increase our productivity, both in our professional and personal life, which reduces stress. As
Mm-hmm.
much as, we all have goals, and whether we judge them as big, small, or whatever, if we can work towards them and we accomplish them, we're going to feel really good about ourselves. We're going to have more confidence, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what's amazing about that, right? And I think, and when we feel more confident about ourselves, we're going to be better people and help society more, right? Like
Yes.
it's definitely, to me, a ripple effect in that. And
Mm-hmm.
also, when we're more confident, we're more resilient. We can handle challenges from a different perception and place where
Sure.
we're like, okay, we've got it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel, well, we have greater accountability as well. And when we tend to, and that's another, like at the end of, well, not the end, but I support people through accountability coaching. And,
Mm.
with that, it really helps them to change that habit.
Right.
And we of really managing the time well and make consistent progress. And it's not just one and done. So, and with
Yes.
that, I also help them, learn how to prioritize. And that comes down with, I don't like to do lists on a daily basis. I have overarching, I call it a power list.
Hmm.
And, you know, two goals, 1 to 2 goals for that week. What's going to move the needle, right? For my goal, and one, well being. So that makes a big difference. Definitely with this time strategy is sustainable so that it's it's like a lifestyle change and
Mm-hmm.
it's not quote unquote a diet. And reduction of overwhelm. we
Oh,
if we
yes.
look at our calendars, and that's where accountability kind of helps when I'm coaching people for a couple months, is that I'm able to say to them, can you really get this all done? Because that's an issue with the to-do list, is that people put too much on and then they
Yes.
don't actually time how long it actually takes them, and then they're disappointed when they don't get it done. Well, with adopting the peak performance and the power, especially the power list, if you've identified, let's say, 2 or 3 days for your peak performance time and you don't get it to it the first day, you actually are more motivated to do it the second and third day.
Interesting.
So because that deadline's coming,
Mm-hmm.
like down the way, right? And it's not so much beating yourself up that you didn't get to it in 8 or 24 hours. So
Right.
it gives you a bit more space to get that done. So I think, and definitely, as I already mentioned, was that focus and clarity, right?
Yes.
Eliminate the distractions. I work with clients to help them say no. I actually have a training on, the power of no, and
Mm.
so that you can say yes more, right? Like what is important. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the benefits are definitely like those are some of the key ones, but it definitely ripples out. And I could talk for days about the benefit of,
Yes. You pointed out some
living
really great
optimally.
things that, that I had to write down. The power list. We're all about creating tasks that we got to do for the day that would fill up in my entire day. Like, oh, I got to do this, that. And I really love that how you mentioned about the power list to focus on two things or three things to get done for the week. It takes us so much stress off of an individual to be able to create realistic goals that you can complete during that time. Then you also talked about time allocation over work life balance, which really is there really a balance? And I love how you mentioned about how we have to really look at our calendar and allocate time for certain things in our life. And then the last thing that you mentioned, which is so key for anything that we do, is accountability, because we're great starters, but a lot of us aren't finishers. We love to start things, but sometimes we get lost along the way, and we need the accountability. And I think when a person has an accountability partner or accountability coach, I'm sure you've seen that they're able to really
Hmm.
accomplish their goals when they have someone to be accountable to. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And whether it's someone, an accountability coach, or someone that that's going to call you on your stuff, and be like, hey, you don't want to, like, a friend can be an accountability coach, but she's got to be like,
Yeah.
girlfriend.
Right. Remember you said.
Yeah.
Oh
Or call the
gosh.
procrastination, right? I was talking
Mm.
to a friend, and she was like, well, yeah, I'm trying to get this business thing together, but I don't know, I'm getting kind of like caught up in how am I going to do all the pricing. And I said, well, don't let that stop you from submitting the application, right? And she's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah, thanks. I said, keep it simple. And we brainstormed a couple different ideas. I said, now do it and send it in, right? So
Yes.
yeah, accountability is.
Man, that procrastination can get us every time, right? Analysis paralysis. I can go down the list of why we just don't
Yes.
get things started. It's like it's so hard sometimes to take action. And as an accountability coach, give us maybe one or two ways that we can take action when it comes down to achieving something.
Yeah, well, I think number one is to make sure that what you want to take action on that you really want to take action on. Because again,
Mm.
this kind of leads into the people pleasing. So I would ask yourself, is this something I really want to do? And I haven't mentioned this, but I'm a very value based person. So I know my top values. And if I'm not doing something, I look and I'm like, okay, is what I'm trying to do, is it not in line with my values? Is it in
Mm-hmm.
conflict with one of them? Or am I just, if, am I just don't have enough information and I need to do some research? Or
Right.
is it just, I'm scared to take that next step?
Mm. Yes. And that's the journey of self discovery. Uh,
Yes.
it's asking yourself those questions. Why am I afraid? Why am I afraid? Is it overwhelming? Just so many good things. I really hope that you guys are taking notes during this episode because it's some questions that you really need your read to ask yourself. I've been talking on social media about brave beginnings, and you have to have the courage to
Mm,
take the first step. And if you haven't, then why aren't you taking the first step? Because there's a deeper reason why. It's not just because, oh, I just don't feel like it, but why don't you feel like it? Let's go a little bit deeper. And I'm really glad that you brought that up. Is that you need to have
mhm.
a friend that's going to be calling you on the carpet, as they say, and like, remember, or you really said you really wanted to do this. How come you haven't taken action? Maybe you need to go on a journey of self discovery to figure out the reason why so that you can
Yeah.
do whatever you want to do, but do something, right?
And you know what? That is an action in itself, right? If you
Yeah.
choose to do nothing, that's an action. And, just to add on to yours, Amanda, is maybe you can break it down even smaller, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
some people, they're definitely, they don't maybe see how to break it down.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, like, for example, um, you know, uh, teaching high school students, and I typically taught grade 12s, is that, you know, when you're deciding what you're going to do for post secondary, I'm like, you don't have to worry about what school you're going to get in. You need to first apply. Your first decision is like they're trying to make the decision before they even got the letter to say, hey, do you want to come to our school? I said,
Mm-hmm.
you first just need to decide is apply, right? So sometimes, and my son had, done this with with football, is that I said, why don't you try out for football? Everybody's like, come out for football, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's like, well, I don't want to take someone's position. And I'm like, oh, honey, you don't even know if you're good enough yet.
Right.
Like, see,
He's confident.
I do it with, he is. I'm like, but you don't even, like.
Oh my
So
gosh.
being able to break, yeah, that's the kind of mom I am. I'm like,
Right.
who do you think you are?
Oh my
To all my
goodness.
clients, I'm like, yeah, yeah. So
But
I
yes,
said, well, I'll give it a shot.
right?
Yeah.
But actually taking that one little step, like you said, to just really break it down and find someone, like Jen or someone else that can really help you to see how to break it down. This has been such a great conversation, Jen. I've learned to really embrace my night owlism, even though I don't have it as much as I used to. But my peak times, I know my peak times, even when I have a photo shoot, my photographer is like, you know what? I was like, oh, let's do the photo shoot at, 9 or 10. She's like, that's not your best time. That's not optimal time for you because you are just not you don't have no energy. It's just like, no. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I've learned a lot about myself when it comes down to like photo shoots and working and everything. So thank you so much for bringing light to this conversation about time strategies, and tell us where we can find you and how, if someone is interested in working with you, they can make an appointment with you.
Yeah, for sure. So I have my website at sonenstrategies.com, and I have, my blogs, and I'll have this podcast up there. I also have the free download for energy tracking that anyone can download. And if you want to go further and set up a consultation with me, for your fantastic audience members, and it's been so great that I'll offer a 20% off discount code that I'll send you that they can definitely, because I just want to, like you said, get it out there, right?
Yes.
And I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. I have not ventured out into TikTok or YouTube yet.
Well, you found your platform. It's okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be sharing Jen's information. You guys can head over to her website and you can download the energy tracker. Trust and believe this conversation, if you will take the necessary, just a one step to download the energy tracker and figure out when is your peak performance, is going to be a game changer for your life. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, it's going to change your life. So Jen, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I look forward to having a conversation with you again and sharing the information that you've taught me today with my friends.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Check out Jen, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Dope Confidence Podcast.